September 3rd, 1939, 11:15 a.m. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain's voice breaks through crackling radio static. This country is at war with Germany. The words settle like lead as millions across Britain hold their breath, wondering what horrors await. Then, just moments later, a telegram arrives at the Royal Navy containing 3 brief yet electrifying words: Winston is back. Winston Churchill galvanized Britain throughout World War II, occupying the Prime Minister's office twice and carving an unforgettable legacy across military history and global economics. As explosions rained down and urban centers turned to rubble, Churchill formulated pivotal decisions regarding war financing, the gold standard, and economic strategies that would fundamentally reshape Britain's economy and reverberate worldwide. Early life and political rise. Born in 1874 into England's most illustrious aristocratic Churchill dynasty, Winston was the offspring of Lord Randolph Churchill, an influential political figure, and American heiress Jennie Jerome. Despite this advantaged start, his route to prominence was anything but certain. At 13, Churchill narrowly secured acceptance to Harrow School's most basic tier. His father, questioning his son's aptitude for politics or legal practice, concluded that military service represented Winston's optimal pathway. Churchill failed the Sandhurst Military Academy entrance examinations twice, achieving success only on his third endeavor. Once accepted, however, he rapidly excelled. Perhaps those initial setbacks and his father's lofty expectations ignited his resolve to triumph in every pursuit. After obtaining his cavalry commission in February 1895, imperial exploits kindled expanding political aspirations. Churchill launched his political career in 1900, winning a parliamentary position representing Oldham. The ambitious young politician didn't merely replicate his father's trajectory. In 1904, his commitment to social reform prompted him to execute a daring maneuver, deserting the Conservative Party for the Liberals. Though his principles proved initially controversial, his forward-thinking vision became impossible to deny when he ascended to First Lord of the Admiralty in 1911, immediately initiating British Navy modernization efforts. The gold standard blunder. As Churchill's political trajectory accelerated, substantial economic transformations required his focus. He ultimately returned to the Conservative Party, referencing disagreements with the Liberals regarding economic strategy, and concentrated on the gold standard, a matter that would characterize a considerable segment of his career. Financial aptitude didn't come instinctively to Churchill, as numerical analysis wasn't his natural gift. Acknowledging this weakness, he recruited specialists like economist John Maynard Keynes, absorbing their counsel attentively. Though frequently unconventional, this input molded his perspective on finance and directed his subsequent choices. Churchill's pivotal decision involved restoring Britain to the gold standard in 1925. The gold standard had been discarded during World War I, as the nation grappled with war obligations and inflation. Reinstating this framework appeared to offer a route toward recovered financial stability and enhanced economic assurance. While theoretically sensible, practical outcomes proved drastically different. The strategy triggered deflation, elevated unemployment figures, and substantial economic distress. Citizens experienced the burden of these policies in their daily existence. In 1926, miners, suffering most severely from the economic pressure, spearheaded a nationwide strike that evolved into one of Britain's most extensive labor uprisings. The nation plunged into chaos with demonstrations and pervasive disorder. Churchill answered with rigorous austerity measures, encompassing reductions to military expenditures. Ultimately, even Churchill acknowledged the gold standard was unsuccessful. By the early 1930s, the strategy's failure became undeniable. Unemployment persisted at elevated levels, and the economy remained stagnant. Britain finally relinquished the gold standard in 1931, inflicting a substantial blow to Churchill's standing in economic spheres. Churchill versus Hitler. Just as Britain wrestled with financial turbulence, a far more formidable menace materialized beyond its frontiers: World War II. Prime Minister Chamberlain, keenly conscious of Churchill's dedication to vanquishing Hitler, entrusted him to consolidate and command the nation. As hostilities intensified, Churchill resumed his previous role as First Lord of the Admiralty in 1939, generating that celebrated telegram, "Winston is back." Churchill assumed the Prime Minister's position, guiding the nation through 5 years of its bleakest period, from the edge of annihilation to final triumph. His most exceptional talent resided in his remarkable oratorical capabilities. His audacious tactics were complemented by stirring rhetoric that energized the populace. His addresses transformed into potent rallying calls, supplying the country with desperately needed fortitude. Comprehending that Britain couldn't battle in isolation, Churchill labored relentlessly to forge vital partnerships. He collaborated with American President Franklin D. Roosevelt, persuading him to furnish essential materials to maintain the war campaign. Despite preliminary reservations, he eventually coordinated with Stalin as well, synchronizing initiatives and uniting objectives to overcome their mutual adversary. Their resolve to combat the Axis powers helped construct the coalition that ultimately secured World War II victory. Sustaining these partnerships demanded Churchill traverse the globe, frequently undertaking perilous international expeditions. The objective was straightforward: preserve the Grand Alliance's strength, because its collapse meant Great Britain's collapse. Financial crisis and Lend-Lease. While Churchill endeavored to reinforce alliances, another pressing matter surfaced. Britain was depleting its monetary resources. Churchill frantically pursued remedies for how Britain could persist in battling Germany when its gold and currency stockpiles reached critically diminished levels. Urgently requiring resolution to this financial catastrophe, Churchill corresponded with President Roosevelt in early December 1940. The moment approaches when we shall no longer be able to pay cash for shipping and other supplies. Roosevelt answered with the Lend-Lease initiative, addressing Churchill's appeal for supplementary financing. Modeled after the earlier destroyers for bases transaction, where the United States furnished Britain 50 obsolete Navy destroyers in return for 99-year territorial leases, the Lend-Lease program substantially broadened this framework. Despite America's isolationist doctrine of evading foreign entanglements, this program constituted an ingenious strategy. It connected the divide between isolationism and assisting an ally. Britain urgently required tanks, aircraft, provisions, and equipment, while America could contribute without formally relinquishing its isolationist position since they weren't directly participating in hostilities themselves. Dunkirk, miracle of resilience. Churchill grasped that equipment and financial assistance alone wouldn't secure victory. Troop morale and fortitude were equally vital. This became strikingly apparent when thousands of British and Allied forces discovered themselves marooned on Dunkirk's beaches. The circumstances looked desperate, but Churchill refused to acknowledge defeat. He summoned anyone capable of assisting the stranded personnel, encompassing civilians and naval craft. The operation was tumultuous and exceptionally hazardous, with perpetual dangers from aerial and maritime assaults. Against insurmountable odds, civilians and soldiers collaborated, executing a miraculous extraction that rescued over 300,000 soldiers. This Dunkirk evacuation delivered an immense morale elevation to Britain, with citizens celebrating Churchill's exhibition of resilience and resolve in confronting overwhelming hardship. Numerous historians contend this occurrence furnished the essential morale enhancement that enabled Britain to persist in its opposition against Nazi Germany. Victory and defeat. Ultimately, the Royal Air Force's Battle of Britain triumph and America's war participation cleared the route to victory. However, Churchill recognized citizens weren't rejoicing; they demanded transformation. On July 26, 1945, the Labour Party achieved a landslide victory. Churchill and the Conservatives were dismissed despite securing war victory, mirroring public appetite for domestic improvements over foreign policy emphasis. Second term and recovery. The Conservatives regained power in 1951, with Churchill becoming Prime Minister once more. However, age had overtaken him. Alongside Chancellor Richard "Rab" Butler, who comprehended Keynesian economic doctrines, Churchill concentrated on reinforcing the economy through complete employment strategies, maintaining the welfare infrastructure, and nuclear defense investments. Churchill had strategized during wartime, instituting rationing in 1940 that progressively relaxed until concluding in 1954, a monumental milestone demonstrating improved circumstances ahead. The war devastated numerous residences, so Churchill's administration furnished 300,000 economical housing units, advancing labor's efforts rather than dismantling the welfare infrastructure. The NHS persisted intact, displaying Churchill's pragmatic accommodation to evolving requirements. Bretton Woods and global leadership. Economic difficulties weren't restricted to Britain exclusively. Churchill united with Roosevelt in endorsing the Atlantic Charter, culminating in the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference. Delegates believed World War II stemmed from post-World War I economic catastrophes, severe reparations, and protectionist strategies that generated the Great Depression. The conference produced the Bretton Woods Framework, where nations connected currencies to the US dollar, supported by gold at $35 per ounce. This furnished stability and foreseeable international commerce, While establishing the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, Churchill proved indispensable, supplying political guidance for international economic partnership and securing Britain's fundamental position in molding post-war financial arrangements. Champion of free markets. While the world progressed toward collectivism, Churchill advocated free market doctrines. As labor intensified, Churchill remained capitalism's formidable advocate, confronting Clement Attlee's socialism through commanding addresses, cautioning that socialism endangered individual liberty and Britain's economic advancement. Between 1945 and 1951, while in opposition, Churchill presented rousing addresses against socialism that profoundly affected young Margaret Thatcher. In October 1945, he proclaimed, "The inherent vice of capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings. The inherent blessing of socialism is the equal sharing of misery." Controversies and dark legacy. Despite numerous accomplishments, Churchill confronted severe condemnation. The most contentious was his administration of the 1943 Bengal Famine in British-controlled India that extinguished 3 million lives. Numerous investigations proposed Churchill's policy deficiencies generated this catastrophe. Though completely cognizant of the famine's magnitude, he made minimal efforts to reduce suffering until late 1943, tragically delayed for millions. Churchill's racial perspectives constitute another controversy. Author John Charmley observed Churchill perceived himself and Britain as victors of social Darwinian stratification. His 1919 endorsement for chemical weapons against uncivilized tribes, designating Kurds and Afghans, disclosed disturbing colonial mentalities. His declaration, "I cannot understand this squeamishness about the use of gas," exposes his alarming perspectives regarding colonized populations' treatment. Legacy. Churchill survived to an advanced age, becoming progressively inactive until his passing in January 1965, with the concluding words, "I'm bored with it all." Churchill's legacy encompasses fortitude, guidance, and resolve. He mobilized Britain through motivating addresses, weaponizing language itself for combat. His aspiration for global solidarity materialized in his 1946 Fulton, Missouri, address advocating for robust Anglo-American partnership, believing shared principles and American atomic capability would sustain post-war tranquility. Churchill wasn't a financial prodigy and would acknowledge numerical analysis wasn't his forte. However, his practical methodology for economic strategy depended on reliable specialists to execute his comprehensive vision. Perspectives remain polarized. Some perceive him as a courageous commander who captured pivotal moments, constructing global coalitions and directing Britain through warfare to triumph. Others condemn miscalculations, like the gold standard's enduring economic ramifications and his racist attitudes toward colonized populations. Nevertheless, nobody could galvanize populations like Churchill during periods of critical necessity. When motivating nations through austerity and rationing, no alternative existed, the world turned exclusively to Winston Churchill.